You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Park Flyer Podcast. It's Saturday night. This has been an absolutely great event. I'm telling you that, man, I have just seen, my eyes have been opened, I guess, as you could say.
I can see, said the blind man.
I know, right? Exactly. I'm back here with Spencer and Barry.
Hello.
Barry, welcome back. We had a great day today. We started off the day with a couple of EDF flights. We all kind of got up and ran out to the field as early as possible at the break of dawn.
We did,
yeah.
Got a couple F-16 flights in.
We did. So, Spencer and I brought our little F-16 foamies that we talked about on a previous podcast. Got a couple of flights in. The problem was the runway is kind of rough.
It is.
And Spencer did really okay, but I came in and landed, and I went a little long, and I think I hit a big crack in the runway, and it folded the little rubber piece off of my nose gear and kept on going.
Yeah, you lost your rubber.
Yeah, I did. And
you're skating on rims.
I was skating on the rims, and it flattened one of the rims, which was not really a good deal.
Yeah,
but
it's kind of brittle plastic.
It's a plastic, right? But I got it back on there, took off. You know, the next takeoff wasn't so bad. But when I landed again, it hopped off, and eventually the other gear, I don't know why, but the other gear won't retract now, or didn't retract. So I got to check one of the main gears.
Yeah, that runway is actually pretty rough on the landing gear, even for the bigger airplanes. It's I think it used to be kind of maybe an auxiliary or a municipal airport that's kind of defunct, and the runway hasn't seen any maintenance in probably 30, 40 years. So.
Kind of like the California roads that were going on here the other day.
Yeah,
exactly.
On the way here, the California roads. Every time we hit a bump, Barry'd go, oh, my plane. Yeah.
Look in the back.
We got to stop and check it out.
Is the trailer still there? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. Well, he looks forward to something going home. The same way going back. We flew the F-16s, and then I had a couple of spare batteries in my pocket. I think that's got to be the fastest battery change we've ever done, because I just ripped mine out, shoved another one in, never even left the pilot box.
Yeah. So we got out there in the morning at probably
still
around 7.
Up.
Yeah, it was about 7 o'clock. The sun was just coming up, though. So
luckily, most people had a pretty good time the prior night, so they weren't peeled out of bed yet. But we tried to sneak out with the EDFs, which it's such a busy event that there really isn't time for EDF flying.
Right.
It's not an EDF event whatsoever.
No.
So really, just if there are any EDFs, usually guys go sneak out there with them early in the morning before the line to fly starts to build up with the normal turbine planes, or maybe in the afternoon, as the sun's going down. It's a little too dark to see the bigger airplanes that are further away. So, and a lot of these little EDFs have lights on them.
This is
just
true.
Like Barry's.
Barry has a new L-39.
Yeah, the L-39 I test flew last night, Friday night. I only got like 1, maybe 2 flights on it. Had to put it away. Had to kind of fight for space to get out there with the other big turbines, kind of intimidating a little bit. Trying to keep it, just a little bit in the pattern, a little bit close. But, yeah. So this morning got more flights in it. Thing flies fantastic. Spencer and myself and also Mike got to fly it as well. And they can contest that it is a pretty awesome plane.
So most of our listeners know I'm a big Freewing guy. I like their products. We've had a couple of the Motion RC guys on it. We promote their product, but this is the Motion RC L-39 that just got released. I think Barry's one of the first guys to have the L-39. As a matter of fact, out at the field, there were 3 guys that came up to us Friday afternoon or Friday evening when we were about to go test fly this,
and they said
we just got ours, and it was still in the box. No, they just got it.
And then they said, "Is that stock setup?"
Right.
What'd you guys do? What'd you do to it? I'm like, "No, this is stock setup." I said, "The only thing I did to it is I did kind of the night light mod where the lights lights. The wingtip lights stay on when the gear is up, which makes a huge difference flying around either day or night. But I actually got a flight in, later on Saturday evening, right before the sun went completely down, and it was really visible.
Wait, Barry, so when you get the plane from the manufacturer, the lights turn themselves off when the gear comes up?
Yep. Correct. So the lights, the nav lights stay on, but the wingtip lights, the landing lights on the wingtips, they go off. So on the little form that FreeWing has on the Motion RC website, they have a little video on a mod some of the overseas guys did, and they basically just bypass the sequencer for the landing gear that goes.
So you just solder it to a different spot then? Is that what you do?
So I did a JXT on both of them, took them off the conjunction box and put it in a different spot on the blue conjunction box, which you'll be able to see that if you have one of these airplanes. Just go on to that website, that the forums, and they have a whole video on it. And that's exactly what I did. The modification literally only took probably about 15, 20 minutes of my time total. Probably the longest
most of that
part
was soldering, though, right?
Yeah, and then finding it and stuff. Right. I had to go to the little vendor and buy a few connectors, male and female, solder them together, and then that probably took the longest of everything, but it made a world difference.
Yeah, and this airplane actually went together. We put it I guess you had it started, but we finished it up at the field here at this event, and it took just a little bit to program it and get it going. Barry maidened it, and it took literally maybe a couple of clicks up and down for trim.
That was it.
And then this thing, let me tell you, it just moves out. It just hauls the mail.
Yeah, it's right around 105 miles per hour, according to what the website said on some of the YouTube videos people are flying it. Yeah, it's great.
And the amazing thing is that we're flying around with a bunch of turbines, which are fast anyway. And Barry was able to keep up with some of them, one or two, not the really super fast ones, but they had a couple of scale jets out there that were flying around, and Barry was right, able to do the little racetrack pattern in the, above the runway there, right with them. So
not get squished.
Yeah. He stayed out of their way most of the time, but the best part was that morning they were like, the guy saw all the jets were starting to line up for that morning. And I think Spencer had already gotten his 2 flights and walked off. I was going to fly the L-39 for the first time. So Barry handed me the battery, and the guy that was taking over the pilot stations was like, hey, are you going to fly this again? Barry's like, yeah, I was going to let him fly it. He goes, okay, well, hurry up because the jets are lining up, and we're going to have to turn the pilot station over to these guys coming out with their turbines. So we jumped out there, and literally right from the pilot station, right, Barry, we just put it on the ground there and took off.
Yeah, we went.
And I flew it around for the first time, got a couple of racetrack patterns in, and did some rolls, loops, verticals, that kind of thing. It worked really, really well, and, came in and land. Well, I still had battery left. So Barry goes, hey, let me have it. He jumps on there and takes off with the guy had his back to us, so he didn't see. It was almost like I gave him, so he takes back off, and he's coming around, and the guy basically says, hey, man, we need you to cut it short. And so Barry lands and turns in right at the first turnoff and taxis past all those jets. Yeah. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, no sense in wasting a good battery. Still had time on it.
Still had time on it. I had about 1:30, and Barry was like, I'll take that.
Yeah,
So
considering it takes like 30 minutes, almost 30 minutes to charge that battery.
Yeah. So that was good. We put those things away and then got right back out to the flight line to watch Barry fly your F-15. But you put the ordnance on it now, right?
Yeah, so I put the drop tank on the bottom center line, then I put the pylons on the wings with the racks and 4 AIM-9 missiles on it. So It looks fantastic scale.
It does look good.
And this is the first time I had an ordnance package on it. I had a GPS on it, and I ended up going about 170 miles per hour with it.
With the ordnance package.
With the ordnance package on it. And then that's about 20 miles per hour slower than without the ordnance package on it. So it was cooking. And when it came by, it was super scale. It was really nice. Came right loaded onto the bottom of right next to the runway. Took off.
It was pretty low. I heard the rocks moving around when you went by. It was
pulled up vertical, did some rolls.
It does look really good. There were a lot of comments this weekend on the way your airplane looked. A lot of people stopped by and were admiring it and asking about it and the ordnance package, that kind of thing. So it was pretty good looking airplane.
That's about probably about 8 or 9 flights on it.
Yeah,
so far, getting real comfortable with it.
Looks real good.
It's going to be one of my go-to airplanes, everyday jets to go fly at the field.
Sure.
It's just a comfortable flying airplane.
Well, after that, I think Spencer broke his F-16 back out.
Yeah, I got a couple more flights on it. So I did my CG adjustment, moved it back about an inch, and flew it around a couple more times just to get a feel for it, get the gyro kind of tuned in, and figure out where my gain needs to be. And so I don't know. I took it out, flew it a couple times, put it away real quick. It's kind of like my ugly little airplane right now. But once we get back home, back to the ranch, I'll get the gear fixed, get a paint job on it,
Yeah.
it'll get a weathering job on it, and it'll start looking pretty good. But, and I also had a chance to fly Barry's F-15 around, just a couple laps around the pattern, and actually flew really nice.
Yeah.
So I was pretty impressed with that. My 16 seems to be flying well, so...
I haven't flown 16 yet, so...
Well, you don't want to fly with a gear down.
Yeah,
No,
that's
I'll just
true.
wait until he gets his stuff fixed.
It's like kissing your sister.
Wait until it's
You
all
said
done.
that earlier, yeah.
Exactly. Wait until it's all done, nice and painted, gear doors all on it, ordnance on it,
Yeah.
Or like
Gear
riding a
fixed.
moped, right? It's
Yeah,
fun,
there you
but you
go.
don't want to be watched doing it.
Yeah. It's fun to ride.
and I'll rip it around the sky a little bit.
Exactly. And then I think you guys broke the flashes out too. You did a. Actually,
yeah.
there was a there was a guy out there, Tom, I think his name is, and he kind of orchestrated a kind of a get together.
Well, the first time was kind of
Yeah, I kind of
Yeah,
got jacked
but-
up the first time. That was pretty funny.
So we
These
had to
guys
pull
get
off
all.
the line.
He says, "Hey, we're going to have 5 ultra flashes go out at the same time and fly." Which, if you know anything about the, I don't know if you've heard of the ultra flash. It's 230 mile an hour airplane. It's just smoking, and to have 5 or 6 of these guys in the air at the same time chasing each other around, it would be just mayhem, craziness.
It is mayhem, and it's something that they used to do commonly in prior years when the Ultra Flash was maybe a little bit newer, more popular. But
sure.
it was, this year's event actually had, I think, 161 pilots.
I think that's what they said.
More than they've ever had in the past. So getting everybody that had a flash out there together at the same time was a little bit of a go rope. But we got 3 of us out.
There were some logistic problems the first time
Yes.
around, but
We got
they
3
finally
of us
got
out
all
at the same
3
time.
or 4. I think there were 4 of you.
Was there 4?
Yeah, and there was an Ultra Bandit or something that was out at the same
yeah.
time. So you had 5 fast movers. You guys all lined up and poured the coals to it, and then it was just literally who could go all out.
Yeah, so we were just doing a speed demon flyby with a hill climb and see who can accelerate all the way up the fastest.
And Barry was thinking
Every
he was
lap.
in the first place.
Well, that's what people told me, so I don't know. I'm just kind of looking at my plane, and I see the other planes next to me and try not to hit theirs.
There you go. I don't
the
think
things are
Barry
pretty
came out at
fast.
full throttle the entire time.
No, because towards the end I started spittering, sputtering after
Yes, you
4.5
did.
minutes. And I
You were
couldn't
pulling
even
fuel out of that fuel system so fast you
Oh,
even
yeah.
sucked your UAT dry.
Yeah, and I've done that before. It was halfway. It was halfway emptied, my UAT, and it was sucking air. And when I landed, it started flaming out. Then I couldn't even taxi back, so I had to
Yep.
go out there,
Carry
I'd
it
shut it
back.
off, and carry it back.
Walk
That
of
is
shame,
awesome.
and you
That's
deserved
fine.
it.
But everybody, when I was coming back, said I was the fastest one.
So just for our listeners that don't fly turbines, what is a UAT?
So UAT stands for Universal Air Trap, and it's essentially kind of like a header tank on a helicopter.
Gotcha.
So it's a small, about a 4 to 6 ounce tank that has a little, I want to call it a membrane, a little baggy mesh inside of there, and it's supposed to prevent any air bubbles from entering. Essentially, that mesh acts as a clunk. And that's what feeds the turbine in an effort to remove any air from the fuel before it gets to the turbine, because obviously if you starve a turbine of fuel long enough,
it quits
you get a
running.
flame out.
Right.
And once you don't have the flame in there, it's not like you can just turn it back on. So
Right.
that's kind of over the years, the tried and true method of preventing from having air bubble cause a flame out or in-flight shutdown. So
Right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you're not sitting behind the turbine where you can just do reset like we can in the big airplanes.
Yeah, I know.
Where you
Wouldn't
can
that be
restart
nice?
that. But I think some of the new technology, the King Techs and some of these other ones have auto relights.
They do,
and auto
just
starts.
like the big airplanes, yeah.
So they have computers that will actually shoot fuel in there and get it turning if it's even spinning.
Well, if there's only any fuel left.
Left, right.
Sure.
So when Barry was flying this full wide open for 4.5 minutes, he basically, that UAT normally sits with about,
It's
what,
full.
60% or better?
No, it should be
No,
full.
it's
Okay, so
completely
it should
full.
be 100% full of fuel.
Sometimes you can't get all the air in the top of it out,
Which
but
is
it's
fine.
far enough away from that membrane to where you don't run the risk of sucking air through it.
Right, and Barry actually went all of his tanks
Halfway.
and pulled half of the fuel out of the UAT.
But
Yep.
with air being less dense than fuel, the second air starts to touch some of that membrane in there, it'll suck the air because it's path of least resistance.
right, and so it starts popping.
And that usually happens right around once the UAT is half full.
Yep.
You start
Half full.
sucking air.
So as you go by, the turbine goes pop, 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 pop like that. You can tell it's starting
air
to suck
bubbles
air.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were chasing each other around. I just happened to be at the pilot box helping calling for Spencer, and all of a sudden I hear this panic voice: "I'm flaming out! I'm flaming out!
Flaming out, I'm landing."
I'm landing!" And he throws the gear out, and as he goes by in the turn, you're just hearing that little flash go pop, 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 pop. And luckily for Barry, he did get lined up on the runway because I thought for sure he was going to land in the dirt, but he got it onto the
Yeah, he
pavement.
did, luckily.
Yeah. Landed it.
And
flamed out.
As he was going by the pilot station, I was laughing. I heard it go poo, spool down. So
Yes.
he totally flamed out on him in the flare and had a little bouncy going down the runway, but he got it stopped.
Couldn't have any better timing.
Oh my gosh,
man.
everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, that was so close." And because the Flash is not really a glider, it doesn't glide,
It glides really well, actually.
does it?
Yeah,
so
it
if you'd have
does.
flamed out, you'd still been able to get to the runway.
yeah.
Well, most likely.
Most of the time. Depends on your elevation, of course.
Gotcha.
The airplane's so clean aerodynamically that it does really well as a glider. But it's
Okay.
still heavy. And it
Yeah,
still
it's
covers
still
a lot
heavy.
of ground.
Yeah.
So, but the glide ratio actually on it is surprisingly well. I brought it by at just a moderate speed, 150 miles an hour, which for that airplane is actually on the conservative side.
Sure.
And I can go to idle and pull the airplane up and leave it at idle, and I can usually make 3, sometimes 4 full patterns around the whole flying field before I touch down at like
Okay.
a simulated dead stick. It's just,
Sure.
it's really clean, really efficient, which is an advantage of this airplane, maybe unlike Brian O'Meara's F-86 today, when he had a flame out himself,
Yeah.
and this airplane is a Tomahawk model, and really big. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the biggest airplanes out at the event.
So he was doing a low flyby
Yes.
on the deck, and then it flamed out as he was passing them.
Yeah.
So he did a good job with energy management, turned his airspeed into altitude, brought it back around to land, and he waited until the last second to put the gear down because he didn't want to cause any undue drag. Well, the problem with that is, and maybe something he didn't take into consideration right away in the light of panic, was that the gear on that particular airplane take like 10 to 15 seconds to get down.
To get down, yeah.
So here he is, made this beautiful circuit around the pattern without an engine, waiting to put the gear down, has the runway made, puts the gear down, but by the time that he got down to the runway, gliding, his gear still wasn't down. So everybody's biting their fingernails and cringing,
Yeah,
and it
off
looked
the
like he
deck.
almost touched the ground.
Yeah.
And it was a little gusty that day, and he kind of pulled it off and maybe got a little extra energy from that wind. And the plane balloon maybe a foot off the ground, 2 feet off the ground.
Just enough to
Magically, the gear come down immediately at that time,
Yeah.
right before he touches down. And I mean, within a quarter of a second.
Yep.
And everybody goes crazy because he saved
Yeah.
the bottom of that airplane.
High five,
Oh, yeah.
fist
So that was-
bump
that was a
with
good
Wayne
time.
and Brian at the line. Like, holy crap.
Yeah. It was fun. Well, let's see. What else did we do today? We had the demonstration guys went out there. The two, I don't remember who they were, though. The Horizon? Were they Horizon?
Yeah, they're sponsored by Horizon.
Sponsored by Horizon.
Spencer Nordquist is one of them, and he is a really good stick. And there was another one from – he wasn't from the U.S.
He was from Germany or somewhere. Right?
Somewhere-
Oh, no, he was from Sweden. He was a Swedish guy.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Both of these guys are really good sticks, and they make these jets fly like foamies, even though they're 50 pounds. I
Yeah,
wanna
they were
say.
heavy.
But they're so big, and the wing loading is so light that they fly like a foamy, literally. and that Mephisto had the thrust vectoring on it, so he's out there, doing his thing and flopping it around.
Right.
And so it's pretty cool to watch. Rolling loops with the jets, kind of neat.
It is kind of neat, 3D stuff with the jets.
So we got to watch them fly. And
again, because we watched them fly on Friday, too.
And synchronized smoke on them on the formation
one.
one.
The formation
really
guys
neat.
had synchronized smoke, so it was like a 2-second on, 2-second off, 2-second on. But they were synchronized where they would pulse and come on at the same time. That was really neat. And then they could flick a button, I think, and make it stay on all the time.
Yeah, so they do like a little draw the heart in the air maneuver while they're playing God Bless the USA.
Some music.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was neat. And
so it's a neat little choreograph.
They're doing Vipers, right? That's what those are?
Viper jets. I think they're Skymaster Viper jets.
I think so.
Red and white ones.
Yeah.
And they were they're big airplanes, but they were close formation-wise. I think that's the closest I've ever seen two RC jets fly.
I would say they're usually within 2 or 3 wingspans of each
other.
Yeah,
pretty
which
close.
is pretty darn good.
Almost the whole time.
That you're that far away. I mean, at one point you're probably half a mile or a quarter mile away from these airplanes, and if they can keep it in that tight the whole time or most of the time, I was really impressed.
I was super impressed.
Yep.
It was really cool to see. And then let's see, what else do we have?
The B-2?
The B-2 flew
the
again.
B-2.
Everybody talked about that. Those guys flew yesterday, but today we had an incident where the gear fell off or didn't come down or something.
I think the right main gear fell off completely, and as it flew by on the gear pass, the brake wires are dangling.
That's right. About 3 feet from the airplane because it just pulled all of that out. And
so Barry Howe, the King Tech owner, handed the controls over to Ali and had him land it. And this guy has immortal fingers.
Oh, my gosh. That guy was amazing.
And did a really, really nice job of landing it on the 2 remaining gear and really just a light scuff underneath the wingtip that didn't have the landing gear.
Hardly any damage.
Oh, it was just amazing. The guy, he's a phenomenal pilot, and he did a really good job with that. So
yeah, it worked out. So
Barry knew it because his first instinct was, "Oh, problem? Here you go."
Yeah,
exactly.
Handed it off. Here you go. Take care of this. But it just came down. I mean, the touchdown looked just like something you'd see on film of the real airplane.
Beautiful. Yeah, the whole approach was just almost fake looking. It's so perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really cool to watch.
It was cool to watch. What else went on today? We have any?
We had a few crashes.
They got all the F-16s up in the air at once.
Oh, that's right. They did. These
5 of them.
Yeah, 5, and they were most of them were.
They're all
Thunderbird.
6 scale, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so there was 3 Thunderbirds, 1 Edwards scheme, and then 1 Black Knights, which is like the Singapore version of our Thunderbirds, let's say.
Right.
But they got all 5 6 scale F-16s up at once, which is pretty cool to watch all those airplanes fly. Again, I'm an F-16 guy. I'm a little biased.
Sure, but it was impressive.
That was.
Now, I did make a joke and say that was the worst Thunderbird.
Yeah, we were laughing. We were saying
it was the worst Thunderbird show I've ever seen because none of them were in formation at any one time.
Yeah.
And we were laughing about it. Spencer said, "Well, today's their first day of practice." So
there you go.
This is what the Thunderbirds looked like when they first showed
up.
That's
right. Day one. So it was pretty funny.
They probably look better than that day one.
Now there were 2 guys though that have been practicing, and they actually came around. They weren't quite as close formation as the formation demonstration team with the Viper jets, but these guys were pretty close.
Yeah, they did pretty good.
And then they came in and landed together too. So that was pretty neat because they touched down and landed pretty close together. I'd say within 10 feet of each other and got it stopped. And
they don't spend any time practicing together. It was kind of an ad hoc thing.
Yeah.
And the Viper jet guys practice it on the weekly basis, and they actually do this demo all over the country and actually all over the world.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, they've got like 500 or 600 practice flights under their belts at this point.
Wow.
So they've got quite a bit of stick time.
That is a lot.
Doing the same routine every time to try and get it as tight as possible. And, I got to hand it to them. It looked pretty good.
Yeah, Spencer's out on the line when they were doing the formation.
Yeah, that's right. You said that they have a very specific way to talk to each other.
They do. They talk to each other in a very similar manner. If you've ever listened to the intercom between all the
Thunderbirds,
Angels
Blue
pilots,
Angels,
or
yeah.
any of the demo pilots, where you have one person who's the lead and basically is calling the maneuvers and when and the timing and
Yeah. Right
that-
roll now.
exactly.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So they adopted a very similar technique, and it worked really well. I mean, there was a lot of chatter going on because they're constantly trying to communicate. But when it came time to the maneuvers, one person was doing the calling, and worked out really nice.
Yeah, I can only imagine how difficult it is to match those two airplanes, because we all know that every RC airplane is different. No, I mean, even if you have the same kit, same everything, they're not going to fly exactly the same. There's going to be some nuances that are just slightly different. And so to build two large 6-scale, turbine jets and have these guys fly, pretty much simultaneously in what appears to be the same airplane, and do it with such precision is amazing.
It is. So when I was listening to them, that was my first opportunity of actually hearing their communication with each other. But they base most of their routine off either full power, half power, or idle.
I got
And
you.
most of it's during flight. They don't really do any slow speed maneuvers together.
Right.
But everything is either full power for the uplines, the big loops and the big, what do you call that big barrel roll maneuver where they all do it together?
A barrel roll?
Yeah, but they're all in formation, and they all kind of come around at the same time.
Yeah.
Kind of like a combination of a loop and a roll. But,
we call it a barrel roll, but
yeah.
looks like your
And-
wheels are going around the inside of a barrel, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
But I will tell
So
you
during that and
yeah,
the loops, that's when they're at full power. The rest of the time, they're at half.
half.
And the planes match up pretty well speed-wise. So it's kind of a good gauge for them,
Sure.
where if they both get on the power at the same time and they both come to half at the same time, 90% of the speed matching is done, and they might make little corrections along
Right.
the way. So
My favorite maneuver watching that was when they came by for what we would call in the airshow world a mirror pass.
yes,
So one guy is upright, the lower guy, and the guy above him is inverted. And they-
opposite that. The
yeah.
guy below is inverted. Yeah.
Oh,
so that way
inverted?
they're bottom wing to bottom wing.
There it is. Yeah, bottom wing to
And-
bottom wing, and then he makes the turn. So the guy on the bottom has to go outside of the turn, inverted, pushing out, and the guy on the inside has to keep that distance.
Yep.
And to do that, now that you're upside down, which means all the controls are reversed, right? Then that is incredibly difficult.
It is.
And-
He said that that mirror pass, when they come by, to get the spacing and the timing correct, they said that's by far the hardest maneuver they do.
Oh, I can only imagine. It's
So-
difficult. Because coming out, they have to get a lot of speed to come down the show center. And if one's faster than the other, by the time they get show center, they're not really on top of each other, mirrored. They're behind each other or ahead of each other, one of the two.
Exactly.
So to get him slowed down, he's constantly have to adjust his speed and mirror the actions of the other guy. And the military guys, the Thunderbirds and Blue Angels, they do mirror passes, but they don't push out like those guys. They just do a mirror pass across show center, and then
One guy
one turns
slides
out,
out
he
and
slides out,
flips
rolls
back
up,
right side
and then
up.
they go out.
Exactly.
These guys actually stayed in the mirror all the way around and did it again,
Yes.
which was just
Pretty cool.
phenomenal. It was pretty cool. I think they did it again because the first time they were the spacing was a little bit out. So he used the turn to basically catch back up to him and get that spacing better. And but to fly that a complete circle inverted and stay with the other guy,
Belly to
was
belly.
very- yeah,
Mhm.
belly to belly.
Cool.
It's just crazy. So that was a phenomenal. That was worth the trip right there, right? Just kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
I think so.
watching those guys. And the B2, that was worth it. So
They had Learjet out there.
that's right. They flew a
Twin engine.
Learjet, twin engine Learjet.
Big thing.
It was for sale actually.
It was like $11,500.
It's still for sale in case you were wanting it. Just send an email to parkfirepodcast@gmail.com. Tell us you want to spend your $11,000, and we'll get you in touch with the.
Or
with
just
the
send me
owner.
the check. I mean, that works too.
Send it to Spencer.com.
Perfect.
You can afford his new airplanes.
That's right. He can afford new ones. Let's see. There was pretty much the rest of the day was just dedicated to flying all kinds of fun stuff. I mean, it was pretty
Lots
much
of socializing,
yeah,
learning
lots of socializing.
stuff. Got to learn how to weather airplanes.
Oh, that's right.
Phil
That was Phil.
was nice enough to let us come watch him do some weathering on those big Yak 130s.
Yak 130, yeah.
So
Huge,
right across from us,
huge.
we had two Yak. They were at least 6 fifth scale, maybe. Fifth scale, Yak
they're big.
130s. They were huge. And Phil is from England, right?
Yeah.
The UK. And he flew over specifically for this Best in the West event.
Yep, to weather an
and
airplane.
To weather an airplane. So these guys obviously, take a lot of pride in their planes and want it as scale as possible. And I know that they have contests and, scale model masters and that kind of thing. And this guy is part of that. So he came over on the request, I think, of 1 or 2 guys and was weathered. I think he said he weathered, 4, 5 airplanes this weekend? And so anyway, he's got a unique technique that he uses this wash and he was doing it kind of in front of us. He had the tent right in front of us, and I was sitting in my chair watching airplanes fly, and I think we were podcasting and doing some other stuff. And he was over there just – at first I thought he was waxing the airplane, which I thought, wow, they hired a guy to just stand there and wax his airplane. But he was brushing this really dirty stuff on it, and the more he worked on it, the dirtier the airplane got. And I was like, man, that polish or whatever he's using to wax. Some bad wax. Yeah, exactly.
He's dirtier now than when he started.
Exactly. That's what I told him. So finally I looked over at Spencer and Barry and I said, hey, man, that guy I think is weathering this airplane. We need to go talk to him. So we wandered on over there. And by the time we got there, he had finished most of the bottom. And just the technique he was using was pretty phenomenal. It wasn't too over the top, and it was just subtle enough.
Just the right amount.
And he did it all with a brush and like a
shop towel.
I was couldn't believe it. I was like, no way. But yeah, he just you could see some of the rivets seeping, and then when we got there, he was working on the actual landing gear. So he was telling us about
the grease.
Yeah, the grease color. There's a color for grease, and there's color for rust. There's a color for dirt. He said dirt. Depending on where you are in the world, the dirt will collect on your airplane, and so different colors will create different dirt patterns. And in the Russia dirt, it's kind of more of a gray than a brown or a black.
And then you got desert dirt.
Yeah, desert dirt, which is more of a red. Light. Yeah, exactly. And so he was working on these landing gear, and honestly, I owned a Russian airplane at one point. A Yak 55. I've been around a couple of Russian airplanes.
Yak Attack.
And
grease is good.
Exactly, grease is good. And the funny part about it is that he had done such a great job that I was really convinced if you would have taken a picture, you would have thought this was an actual landing gear on a Russian airplane. A real Russian airplane, not a model.
Yeah, he added the grease along all the joints. Yeah. And it was the right color, and it kind of spattered like the air was hitting it and spreading it out. And
it's phenomenal.
And it does it all with a paintbrush. So he really is an artist.
Yeah, he really is.
Oh, yeah. So. I picked up some pictures, too, so
good.
I'll forward on to you, Mike, so you can go ahead and
jump on our Facebook page and just dump them on there.
There we go.
You're welcome to post.
Yeah, that'll be
I think
cool
we have some up there anyway.
Share those.
Share those and go on there
people
and like
can
them.
they can see kind of what we're talking about because it really was impressive. And the guy was just a wizard at it. He whipped through this giant airplane in about 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, I don't even know if that was that long.
And I've weathered other airplanes that were half that size before in the past, and I'm sitting there with my airbrush, and 6 hours later, it's halfway done.
Exactly.
So that
was impressive to me that he didn't even use an airbrush because I've weathered airplanes with airbrushes as well. And he had no airbrush in sight, just a shop towel, a wash. Then he just kind of washed it out, and it was with oil paints, not acrylic. He said, but
right.
Yeah, I weathered my airplane too.
You did. You weathered your
it.
L-39 by flying it around in a dusty, dirty
and
atmosphere.
The same thing with the F-15 too.
That's true.
The turbine oil,
turbine oil comes out.
Yeah.
So they do have some of that actually happens. I'm pretty sure if you were flying those airplanes and you put a couple of drops of oil in the right places and let it just seep through, it would work.
Don't clean it.
Couple 100 miles an hour airflow over the airplane kind of acts just like the real thing, right?
Exactly.
You can't get any more authentic than that.
No, you
put
cannot.
a coat of clear over it and it's permanent.
And of course, the way that this was kind of strange because, as Spencer said earlier, this is an abandoned field, I think, or it has a gate. I don't know if anybody actually flies off.
I'm not sure. Yeah,
but it is an actual runway. It was closed for this event, I think, at some point. But there's no taxiway. It's just a runway. And rather than back taxiing, which is what a normal airplane would do, they were having the guys flying their models that would basically get halfway down the runway, turn off, and come down this little dirt taxiway.
Kind of like a dirt
it was
road.
like a dirt road, but, it was hard-packed, in some places, not so in others. I got stuck with the F-15 down there, but
I think it's an old ag strip because a lot of
it might
farms.
be. There are a lot of farms out there. Yeah, a lot of fruit farms or something. But anyway, what I was going to say is that because they were coming down this dirt track, then I think that's what helped. Barry weather the airplane more realistically,
and my feet,
and your feet, because it was so dusty
the whole time, and then you taxi the airplane by, and the dust is blowing
around. So with the turbine oil leaking along the belly, and then the dirt collecting to it, it did give a lot of weathering effects. So, and your L-39 got some too, I think.
Yes, it did.
So, because it's got a white bottom, so it didn't take much to get that thing all.
And my dirty fingers.
Yeah, that's true. Fingerprints all over. Well, other than that, let's see. That pretty much took care of the day. We had the banquet. That
we did.
This evening, and
awesome food.
It was great food. They did a really good job. They fed us pretty much the whole time we were here.
All 3 nights we had something. We had
taco night
on Thursday, and Friday we had what did we have?
Ribs.
How could you forget ribs. Yeah. And then tonight we had chicken
and beef and
sausage.
Barbecue platter.
Barbecue platter.
Pretty darn good.
Yeah, with I think peach cobbler, right?
Yeah, I think so. It was good. So we had the food. We had a food vendor out here. He did breakfast burritos every morning, and they did burgers and stuff for lunch. I have to say that our tent mates, and I can't even name them all, but
there's so many.
Kenny put together our lunches for us.
Yep.
He likes to come out and take care of us, and
he had lunch. He was running around. I've never seen anybody like. He's always like, "You eat? Have you eaten? Have you eaten? There's got food. Come eat. Come eat."
Yes.
He was literally trying to feed the whole place. He just wanted to make sure anybody was walking by the tent needed you need to get a plate.
Yep.
So they had lunch for us all the time. You could either go get the hamburger from the vendor, or you could come by our little tent. So we really lucked out.
Yeah.
Because I think originally we were going to be off on our own. Just kind of doing our own thing, and we were nice enough to Tony Quist. He's the guy that kind of
got us
spearheaded, and he had some cancellations and called us and said, "Hey, man, why don't you come be a part of our group here into this tent?" And we got it right at Show Center. It was really worth it.
We actually had a lot of people from our club show up, and actually probably more than any other clubs that show up, which was great.
I'd have to agree. I was just going to say the same thing, that we got really lucky, and
we did.
And we have a great group of guys that fly turbines in our field. So really, I think that we had by far the biggest area, or the amount of people or whatever,
from the same club
than anybody else, which that's pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. I wish they would have recognized that. You probably could have looked at it and seen. But I think you mentioned earlier we had 160 some odd registered pilots.
Yep.
They did say at the banquet tonight that was the largest in history, right?
That's
right.
I think
it's largest
pretty
ever
cool.
was this year.
And
that's
the weather
good.
was
Every
fantastic.
Year it get bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
So hopefully some of you guys listening will come out and join us next year. It happens every year. So I think this was the 9th one that he's done under the Best in the West name. I think.
So he said something tonight about a 30th anniversary, though. Is that for the club?
I don't know if it was for the club or perhaps that kind of jet rally around that time. I know that it used to be named something else, and that's when Joe
going on for 30 years
took it over and renamed it. But yeah, something about 30 years. He
said join us next year for the 30-year anniversary. So I wasn't
that's pretty
really
cool.
Sure. That is amazing. They've been flying for 30 years. So that's crazy. Well, the banquet's over. We were just kind of sitting around. They had fireworks for us tonight.
We had the auction.
And, we had an auction.
And then the awards.
And the awards. Yeah, the auction was amazing to watch.
Took a long time.
It did take a little while, and but there was a lot of money raised for
a lot of money.
So they had probably 8-foot tables.
Yes.
Piled with
product,
auctionable merchandise that it was all sold, and all the proceeds went to Make-A-Wish Foundation, which is really cool that Joe C., that runs the event, puts together this charitable event that we all kind of, even though we're out there flying jets, at the end of the day, I want to say they auctioned off probably $150,000 literally worth of gear.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it be
easy. Yeah.
Turbines, engines, airplanes,
Big airplanes.
gyros,
Right.
foamies, everything.
Servos.
that
P-51 ride.
Yes, everything that the,
P-51
A
the
real
sponsors.
P-51 ride.
Oh, I know, right? I almost bought it,
Yeah,
but
you
I had
should've.
to. I
You
had
should have
to
bought it.
restrain myself.
Oh yeah, it went for $700 and
Yeah, for over an hour riding a Mustang.
That
Over an
is
hour.
crazy.
So
And unfortunately, the wind was kicking up, and I was worried about our tent, and I ran out there to grab all the foamy stuff off the table.
he
and
grabbed me and said, "Hey, go
Yeah,
out
I
there."
said,
I'm like,
"Hey,
"Oh,
come help."
okay."
So Barry turned around and ran back. I, had some other stuff, took a phone call, did some other things, and so by the time I got back, that had already been auctioned off. The ride had already been.
Oh, yes.
big
Yeah.
ticket out. But they did have a full size, not a full size, but the Havoc, which the Havoc is by who makes that?
Elite Aerosports, I believe.
Elite Aerosports.
Elite
that is
Aerosports,
correct.
that's
Elite Aerosports makes it. I know.
$9,000.
Yeah, I know. Mike yesterday was talking about it, and we couldn't
that's just
remember
for the
who made
airframe.
it, but
Yes,
that's the airframe. $9,000.
But it's
And,
one of those giant 3D style.
vector
correct.
thrusts.
Yeah,
You know,
it is
jets that-
amazing.
Unbelievable.
And it lands like a kite.
Oh yeah, you can
Thing is
you can
just
walk faster
barely-
than it lands.
Yeah. And on our website, on the Facebook page, not our website, but our Facebook page, I actually have a picture of them. One of the company, I think Elite Aerosports was back there, but they had 6 of them sitting. You can only see 4 of them in the picture, but 2 more were in the tent. So they were phenomenal looking airplanes. Huge airplanes. But they were good. They were fun to watch. Super slow when they wanted to be slow, super fast when they wanted to be fast, and very 3D oriented. It was kind of neat. So, and then let's see, we had the awards. Yeah, we got and out of our group, I think Tony Quist won the best. What did he win? Best military jet. I
Yes.
think.
Yep.
Yeah, best military jet. So he's got a Cougar, right? And,
He does. A Skymaster Cougar.
Skymaster
and,
Blue.
and silver,
Uh-huh.
and it looks like a big aluminum sheet, even though it's not.
Kind of looks like a bat in the air, the shape of the airplane,
It does.
you know?
It is kind of an odd-shaped airplane, but the good news is it looks very authentic.
It does.
Oh, yeah.
And so I have a question because Tony took off a couple of times, and maybe you guys will know this. I didn't get a chance to ask him. But he taxis out, the canopy's open.
Yep. And he
And
takes
then
off with it
He
open.
takes off with it open.
Yes.
And then does it close when he retracts the gear or something?
It's
or
on a
how does that work?
switch.
So he just hits the switches and the canopy closes
Yep.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you take off with the canopy open?
To look cool.
Just to look
Why,
cool.
why would
Okay,
you
right there.
drive a car without a roof?
I know it's a
Yeah,
convertible.
it's kind of the same thing. It's, it's show.
Just
it's
to show that I
flashy.
can.
But you know, the
Yeah.
real one can too. You can actually slide the canopy back and fly the real one
In flight.
in flight with it.
I got you. Okay, well maybe that's why it does. It's
Kind of
he's
like,
for scale.
you know, in the Airbus or whatever,
Sure.
we can open the window and
Not that-
under
but we
extreme
usually don't.
rating
That's true.
circumstances.
True.
But
That's funny.
you know, I think it's one of those things where how many jets can you fly around and land on an aircraft carrier with the top down?
Yeah,
That's
I don't
pretty
think there's
cool.
that many, but yeah, you are correct. But it was a beautiful airplane, and I'm glad that he won the award and several other awards.
John,
I think
John won one too.
John
for-
did.
He did
Another guy from our club, John,
for his
he,
A7 Corsair.
That's
Yes.
correct, and
So
that's
that's
the
kind of an
most
interesting-
authentic,
Yes,
the
that's an
most
interesting
scale. It was
project.
the most scale military jet, I think, is what he won.
Yes.
Right. It's a pretty interesting project. You know, he's been working on that with a couple other partners that are involved. Wayne is one of them.
Right.
And there's also a guy in the Midwest that's more focused on the fuselage.
Mm-hmm.
John was doing the wings, and Wayne stepped in to do the control surfaces and help with the wings. And they kind of scratch built this thing and began making molds and producing it about 10 years ago.
That's
Actually.
crazy.
And there isn't any other one like it. They're the only ones that have the molds, and I think they're the only ones that make an A7 of that size. And an A7 is a pretty unusual airplane to begin with.
Right.
It is.
So it does get a lot of attention. And actually, the airplane, they've done such a nice job with it, and it's so unique that airplane almost always brings home hardware.
Yes,
You
it
know.
is very amazing. It's very detailed as well.
Yes.
A lot of
It's
scale.
really
And
nice.
he's got his all weathered. It looks. Once again, from a distance, you'd never know. Even in the air, if
Looks
you
good
took
and
a
it
photo,
flies good, too.
Yeah, you took a
Yep.
photo of it in the air, you really wouldn't know you weren't looking at a real airplane. It looks really good.
Brian
And then
O'Mara.
Brian took home some awards too. Several. I think he got one for a jet award, or he got one for his F-86,
F-86.
and he got one for something else. Or he got 2 for the F-86, I think.
I think so.
Most scale warbird or most scale turbine jet or something like that. And then he got 1 for something else. But anyway, they both got so that was three guys at least from our group that got awards.
Go us.
So
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
they will have to.
No awards coming home for the piecemeal F-16 with the gear down. I'm not quite understanding what happened.
I know
there,
they
but-
should have had the ugliest airplane award.
I would've won
it.
But
Yeah.
we'll get it fixed up. So I'm looking forward
There
to
you
that,
go.
and I'll do some before and after shots on the Facebook, and then
Perfect.
people
Yeah,
can see
yeah.
how hideous it is now.
Honestly, I don't think it's a hideous airplane, but
No,
I
no.
do
It looks
understand.
good, but just
It does look
because the
good.
fact that that's been primed
know.
and sanded
I
on,
know.
and there's some
Work
body
in
work.
progress.
Well, and
It's,
compared to some of these things out there, I mean,
one
they
wing's
were
painted,
yeah,
primed, and the other one isn't.
The other one isn't. But
It's-
and honestly, compared to some of the airplanes we saw out here, they would be the ugly duckling in the group,
Yes.
because some of these were phenomenal.
Yes.
The F-86, they had this F-86 out of there. I think I may have mentioned this earlier with Mike, but they have this F-86, and as he goes out and prepares to fly, the canopy slides back or opens up. The engine starts, going up, and you can hear radio chatter and from the airplane.
Top Gun.
And then it plays the theme to Top
music.
Gun. Yeah, it plays the
Yes.
theme to Top Gun or whatever. And then he goes and flies it, comes back, and then I think yesterday they were playing Flight of the Valkyrie or something as he was taxiing in. The guys were just like standing there watching this guy taxi, and it's got so many lights on it. I really don't think the original F-86 Sabre had that many lights. It's got lights on the tail, on the wings, on the body. I mean,
Yes.
he added all these.
Thing is a
and
Christmas tree.
It is a Christmas tree, really. It really is. But it looks good in the air, though.
It does.
It does.
And he did a great job. Unfortunately, there were 2 of them similar, and we lost the other one. I think the guy.
Little
lost
orientation
the
problem.
Orientation problem. So we did pretty good. There were how many jets do you think? There were 160 pilots. Each pilot had probably multiple.
Let's say
jets.
2 to
So
3
you took
planes
two-
per pilot, right?
So yeah, so
Puts
you're
us
looking
at
at
almost
400
500 jets.
yeah, about
500.
400 jets.
Yeah.
All of them flying 5 or 6 at a time, because we really didn't have too much of a break. Every time
Sure.
a pilot station opened, you had a flight, 2 or 3 landing, 2 or 3 taking off simultaneously.
5 airplanes in the air almost at all times.
Almost all day long, from about 8 o'clock in the morning till almost 5:30, 6 o'clock.
I mean, just
at
the
night.
smell of all the jet fuel
Jet fuel.
burning.
Yeah.
I'm sure we did irreversible nerve damage, but that's okay.
And the weather's been fantastic.
Weather has been fantastic, but to have
Oh, yeah.
all of those jets flying for that many days, we did incredible as far as only losing 2.
I have to say
good.
that out of all the jet events I've been to, that was by far the least amount of casualties.
The cleanest.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, we first showed up Thursday to have an airplane fall out of the sky and land just in front of the tents.
Which was
So-
scary.
Oh, yeah.
That was a little scary.
Yeah,
Flat spin right into the almost the tent.
a
Yeah.
pilot was flying with somebody else, and he began controlling the wrong airplane.
Yeah, he
So
looked
while
at the
he
wrong
thinks
one.
he has one, the other one is uncontrolled missile or drone.
Pretty much.
And-
Luckily, it was in a spin.
Yes, and it
Because had it been
actually,
anything else, it would have been off somewhere into the pits.
and we just hear incoming or look out,
Yeah.
and
Get
all of a
down,
sudden
get
this
down.
thing
Get
hits
down.
the ground like a pancake,
Yeah.
and
Bam.
the dust flies out from around it,
Yeah.
and
Smoke.
it's smashed, and really somebody could have really got hurt there,
Yeah,
but
we
thankfully
lucked out.
it landed in a safe place,
Yeah.
and
Nobody got
at
hurt.
the end of the day we can kind of laugh about it, but
Yeah.
at the time it was pretty, kind of scary.
Pretty devastating. Yeah, unfortunately, that airframe was a total loss. The second one, the F-86 that went in, was right towards dusk. I think on Friday evening, and I was actually out in the pilot station watching. Were you flying, Barry, or was somebody else?
Yeah, I was flying.
I think you were flying your F-15, and I was out there watching, and this guy just got disoriented because his airplane is silver, and as the sun was going down, he was going out, and he was going to do a low flyby and literally hit the end of the pavement of the runway.
Yeah, he's turning base
So,
to final, and
yeah,
just
just-
seen it come into a spin right into the ground at the end.
He tried to recover. I think he hit the throttle, and it was this bright kind of bluish-green flash,
Too late.
and then a big boom just came rolling down the runway towards us.
Smoke.
And then smoke. And
Yeah.
everybody, he just was like, oh. And it was a beautiful airplane, too. Very detailed. I mean, it was all done up in the bicentennial colors, the 17, whatever it is,
Yep.
The centennial. And it was pretty bad. So luckily, Joe has a rhino or whatever
rhinos,
it is.
yeah,
And
something
they
of the
took the
sort.
guy down there, and he was able to recover.
John Deere type.
Yeah, and he was able to recover it. They surprisingly, they didn't really stop the operations. They just told people to be aware that people were running down there and to land a little longer, and it continued to go. But it was devastating. A lot of people, kind of consoled him
Sure.
once it happened. So,
But yeah, to your point, considering how much flying had taken place throughout this event, to only lose 2 airplanes, even though it sounds terrible, that's doing pretty darn good. I'm impressed.
yeah, I was impressed.
I'm really
as well.
impressed.
I
And really not too many damage issues, as far as hard landings or ripping landing gear out or
no,
going
we
out
had
in the
we had
bushes.
some
Just
gear
a
issues.
couple.
Yeah, we had nose gear issues. A couple guys landed with nose
Main
gear
gear.
down. Main gear, the B2. We had 1 or 2 that
Porpoising.
yeah, but everybody kind of saved.
Yeah, most people
everybody
went home
saved
with
it.
their airplanes, which we
Yeah,
did. So
yeah.
huge win to
Yes.
us.
Huge win to us.
We didn't lose anything, so that's awesome.
Yeah,
Plus
Good
a few
event.
more.
yeah.
And pretty much now as it's late.
Unfortunately, we did come home with a few.
Yeah, what happened there? What
Well, okay,
happened
so
there?
just so you know, Saturday for all our listeners, Saturday is Let's Make a Deal Day
yes,
because all these guys bring the airplanes out, they fly them, they do work on them or whatever, and then they see somebody else's airplane. First thing they want to do is say, "All right, I want out of my airplane."
and I want
So
that.
the flight line going down the flight line, like out towards the runway,
Littered.
littered with for sale
Yeah.
signs. And throughout the day, it just kept getting
Bigger.
cheaper and cheaper and
Yes.
cheaper because they didn't want to load them up. They didn't want to take them home. They didn't want to travel with them. They just wanted them out of their hair. And it was funny because I think Saturday, this morning, 10 o'clock or so, there were a bunch of them out there. And by, 5, 6 o'clock, there was probably, 3 or 4 or 5 of them out there. So there were people that spent an incredible amount of money. I think the record was, what did the one guy say? He spent almost 50
grand on 3
Yeah,
airplanes.
just so you know the cost of these things. He had 3 airplanes, I think a total of $50,000.
One was a Gulfstream 550.
Yes, the G550.
2 engines in it.
Yeah,
What?
had 2 engines, and it was custom built. It's one of a kind. Actually, I think there's 2 that are built.
It was a Skymaster, right?
No, it's a scratch built.
Oh, okay.
Actually,
I thought it was
what's
a
his-
Skymaster prototype.
The guy's name is he was the guy with all the P-51 for sale as well. Lowell, yes, Lowell.
Well,
So Lowell was standing there, and he had that one and one other for sale. There was one in the box and one that was complete sitting out, and he sold the one that was already complete, ready to go. So, and he did sell it for $11,000 plus dollars. So, good for that guy. He built it. He deserves every bit of it. It came ready to fly. Just put your receiver in and go. But he actually built the Learjet that we were talking about earlier. He
did,
that
yeah.
one too. Yeah. So he
He's
did
got a
both
few of the
those.
business jets, which you don't get to
Yeah.
see very often.
No,
it's
you
kind of
don't.
like the airliners. No airliners at this event.
Yeah,
None.
that's
And there
lot
used
of
to be a
F-16s.
few. Yeah. All military stuff, really. Almost all military stuff.
Yeah.
And which is cool. Those are, I have to say they're my favorite. But it is kind of neat to see something different, like an airliner, like the commercial, or I should say more private aviation,
Right,
Learjets.
right.
And that one that sold was, the G550, so the business jets. So,
Yeah, he had a couple of business-looking jets out there. I
Yeah.
think so. But yeah, so everybody, kind of bought and sold. I think one of the guys said that he bought an airplane on Friday, flew it all day Friday, Saturday put it up for sale, and sold it that afternoon. So it is kind of a little marketplace for things like that. Although, kind of in my park flyer status, it's not in my my realm. But
well, you're not going to find more buyers in one place than you are there.
That
I'll
is
tell you
true.
What?
That is
That's
true.
the time and
So-
place to do it.
So, yeah, as we wandered around and kind of looked at everything and saw the for sale signs and read and talked to people, it was very interesting to see, what people had put into their models, what they wanted out of them, what was a good deal, what was a bad deal. Some of the deals were really a smoking deal. They were fabulous if you were into spending that kind of money, and other deals were not so fabulous they obviously wanted a lot of money
lot of money
for their airplane. So, but it's a hobby, and that's what these guys do.
Got to spend it somewhere.
Got to spend it somewhere.
That's right.
Boys and their toys.
Well, overall, it's been a fantastic weekend, I guess.
That's
been a lot of
fun.
It's a lot of fun.
This is my first jet show.
It's your first jet, just really?
Well, actually, it's my second one. I went in one in Vegas, but it's not as big a caliber as this. This
Gotcha.
was huge and puts the one in Vegas to shame because there's only maybe about 10, 15 flyers over there
right.
in the one in Vegas, and that was many years ago. But I've never seen so many people, jet enthusiasts, come together and so many impressive airplanes and impressive shows in my RC career since I've been 12 years old.
Yeah,
Now, and we
awesome.
actually had it wasn't all U.S., right? We had an Australian
Different
contingent.
countries too.
We had people
Australia,
from all over the world
yeah,
that actually
Europe.
fly to this event. And from my understanding, it's the biggest RC jet event west of the Mississippi. I know Kentucky Jets is another really big event
Right.
of similar scale. And also, there's a couple Florida events.
Yeah, they're Top Gun or
So
whatever down
Florida
there. I think
Jets
the biggest
is a
one.
jet-only event that's probably equal size, maybe even bigger.
Right.
And then Top Gun is more like the scale competition, but you're going to
Okay.
get the same amount of crowd, the same crowd,
Right.
the guys that are into the scale stuff. So for us West Coasties, this is it. This is
Yeah.
our holy grail of RC events.
Now,
So-
you've been to this before, though, right, Spencer?
I haven't. No, this is my first year.
So all three of us for the first time, I thought I was going with guys that were pretty familiar with all this. So this actually worked out that we were all new to this.
Luckily, we went through with a bunch of guys that have been there.
A lot, yeah.
All of our club mates have done this for probably 6, 7, 8 years since.
And
the
they
event
they are
started.
very welcoming with open arms. So I was amazed that Tony was worried about me getting to fly. Even though I had an EDF, he's like, hey, Mike, did you get to fly today? And I go, yeah. And he's like, okay, good. He was worried about me having to come and not having an opportunity, which is good. And of course, Vinny and Arthur and the rest of these guys are just fabulous guys to hang out with and chat with and listen to their careers because they've spent. Vinny's been 30 years almost, I think, flying turbines.
Vinny, as far as I know, Vinny has been in the game longer than anybody else I know.
Yeah.
He started in the ducted fan days
Right.
of, nitro engine. They didn't have EDFs back then. So you had a nitro engine like an OS 91
Right.
or an OS 120. And
it
you'd
turned
cram
the
one
fan.
of these things in there into a little built-up F-16, F-15, whatever.
Right.
Dynamax fans.
Yeah, and go
That's
fly
what
the
I
thing.
mentioned.
And we think some of these EDFs are, anemic. The ducted fans were really nothing like what we have now. So the turbines have changed the game. But anyway, back to him. Yeah, he's been doing it longer than anybody I've known, and I know that he's at least the 30-year mark
Yeah,
in
that's
jets,
amazing.
which is
Yeah.
pretty much since the beginning.
Yeah, that's truly amazing. So, well, they treated us well. Now, have you guys been to the Tucson one? I know
I
there's
have.
a jet rally in Tucson, so you guys have gone
I
to a jet
haven't.
rally.
I've done the Tucson one, and I've done the
Superstition.
or it's called the Arizona Jet Rally.
Yeah, the Arizona Jet Rally.
And then also they had one called Desert Jet Storm, which is out at Speed World, which is the big
gotcha.
flying field
Right.
on the west side
On the west
in
side
Phoenix.
town. Right.
But they quit doing it about 3-4 years ago. Speed World is the name of the complex they have.
Right.
RC field. They've got a drag strip and motocross track, RC
Right,
tracks for
right.
RC cars. And
They've got a flat track and a circle track or something
yeah,
like that. Over
and
there.
the club was in a little bit of trouble from a land lease standpoint.
Right.
So I think a lot of the events that they used to do are really no longer around, unfortunately. So hopefully they bring a couple back, especially the Desert Jet Storm event they hosted there, because really it was just like what you saw this past weekend,
Right.
but
right.
just maybe on a third of the scale, and with your local guys. It was really a great event. But the nice thing is it's a similar deal where this RC field is actually where they host a lot of the Quickie 500 pylon race nationals and stuff there.
Right.
So there's 2 runways. We only use one for the jets, but they're very long. They're well maintained. There's no airports or anything to be worried about around, so
Right.
there's no noise restriction. There's no height restrictions, and it makes for a really good jet event because there's no obstacles. At the Arizona Jet Rally, on either end of the runway are airplane eaters. One end's a ditch, the other end's cactuses and bushes.
Exactly,
and literally, if you overrun the runway by 50 feet,
you're in the dirt.
In the bushes,
Right.
In damaged territory, we'll call it.
Ripping
right?
off landing
Yes.
gears.
Really, it's an airplane eater.
It is.
So the Desert Jet Storm was a really, really good event. I sure hope they bring it back, or maybe that's something we can look into putting together because it's awesome to be able to have an event that's that fun.
And that large, so you can get
and have it local.
Sure.
Because really, the Arizona Jet Rally is okay, but the field is kind of tough for the bigger airplanes.
It is because it's got kind of a short. They hold the Electric Festival there every year. That we do a
They do.
podcast on the Electric Festival. So I've been to that field. It's the Arizona Model Aviators Club, and we've been out there. It's a beautiful field, nice runway, but for a jet, I do see that it's a little bit tight for that. So. Well, our hour is up, man. It has been a great weekend. I do appreciate you guys joining me for this podcast. It's been great to have you host with me. Unfortunately, Mike and AK Mike and Jay were stuck in Texas. They didn't get to come out for this event, but you guys were great hosts. Thanks for joining us.
Well,
Thanks
I sure
for having
appreciate
us.
it. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
man. I since you guys
Do
are
it
local,
again.
maybe we'll have to have you on a little more often. But I know Spencer's and I have been spending a lot of time together, and we've now got a project that we got to start working on with me, I guess. So.
We do. We'll wait until the next podcast for the big reveal.
Yeah, the big reveal.
Yeah,
Gotta
and I
we'll
have
see how
one
it goes.
too.
Yeah,
Gotta
he
leave a
has one
little
too, I think.
suspense
I
out
think
there.
Exactly.
we all have.
We all have projects that
Going on right now.
Yeah, that are going to be upcoming. So we'll have plenty to talk about.
Big announcements, almost like a
Big
pregnancy, right?
announcements,
This is a
Yes,
big deal.
exactly. It is a big deal.
Big announcements
So-
coming
Coming
up in the future that keep you guys on pins and needles.
It's a tease.
Oh my gosh! Well, thank you very much for joining us here at the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona, and along with Spencer and Barry, we appreciate you listening to us. We appreciate your patronage, and we really hope you enjoyed our podcast. So we'll sign off for now. Thank you guys, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
See ya.
So long.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.